This podcast is brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those that love to make and drink great beer. To learn more or to subscribe, visit beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew. We're in Issaquah, Washington for this week's episode of the podcast. Joining me is Jesse Brown from Formula. Welcome to the podcast, Jesse.
Thanks for having me.
We've known each other, was it 2015 when we met at the Melvin Madness Days up in Alpine, Wyoming. Interesting time. I had dragged my kids up there for the weekend to give my wife a weekend off, and not sure what my thought process was about that whole thing, but it was actually pretty fun. The kids had a great time just messing around, and we burned things and ate some good food, drank some good beer, and you were at Altitude Chop House at the time down in Laramie, and then have made a few more moves. Now you're out here in Washington, and then back in 2024, I remember I met a friend down at Westbound and Down who was in town for GAB or for World Beer Cup judging, and you just happened to be in there already. We sat down, had some beers, had some food, and later that year you went on to win. Well, actually, a month later, it was announced that you won 4 World Beer Cup medals at that World Beer Cup. I remember coming out of that thinking, "Damn, Jesse, 4 World Beer Cup medals." That
was a crazy year. Those awards definitely. I'm always hopeful and always want to win. I love competition, and I love the feedback. The peer-reviewed feedback is really important to me and helps me sharpen up, and I like to see where I kind of fall with my peers, and that was bananas. It still feels bananas, and it's all this, another year and a half later.
Yeah. Well, so I figured since we were out here bouncing around Hop Harvest, going back and forth, Yakima, Seattle, Bellingham, doing some stuff. Here you are right on the way. Like, we got to stop in and have some beer at Formula. Joe and I did last night. Hopping Beer Garden here. What a cool spot. Just on a Saturday night, it was just jumping with locals out here, families, all kinds of stuff. Definitely that kind of community beer garden hub, which is not a surprise because you also make the styles of beer that fit perfectly into that. Lots and lots of lager, lots of Helles, Zwickel beer, Keller beer. Runs the gamut there. Obviously, you make hoppy beers because we're in Washington. We're about an hour and a half from Yakima Valley right now, and of course, you have that kind of proximity and get over there and have a lot of thoughts around hops. You actually won a silver at World Beer Cup last year for Loyal to the Soil New Zealand IPA. Had one of those last night. Delicious, but also restrained. Thought it was a really interesting way to capture that New Zealand hop character without overdoing it. Maybe we can talk a little bit about your approach to hops and making hoppy beers. Definitely to talk about your approach to lager brewing, and because this is an American craft brewery cellar right here, brew house and cellar. It's not necessarily a German style lager brewery that you've got here, and you're still turning out medal winning beers with it at World Beer Cup. Certainly an awesome thing, winning a silver World Beer Cup for Helles, and against that kind of competition. We'll talk about all of those things. We'll talk about fresh hops because it's the season right now, and and there's this raging hot side versus cold side debate. We may address that later on, and we'll talk about a few other things. Maybe Baltic Porter. We'll see where we get to. You certainly hold some brewing superstitions. Maybe we'll talk about some of those too. We'll get to it all, but first, for years, G&D Chillers has chilled the beers you love, partnering with 3,000 plus breweries across the country. They're proud of the cool partnerships they've built, offering 24/7 service and support. They build with non-proprietary parts, expert craftsmanship, and constant innovation. Their in-house engineering crew have been piping breweries, wineries, and distilleries for more than 30 years. They offer free piping design and consultation with the sale of every chiller they build. Reach out for a quote today at gdchillers.com or call to discuss your next project. And brewers, what if your yeast could do more than just ferment? With Berkeley Yeast, it can. They bioengineer ordinary strains and make them extraordinary, enhancing the flavors you want and eliminating the ones you don't. Now, in addition to competitive pricing, they're offering free overnight shipping on 5+ barrel pitches. Try it out. If you don't love it, they'll happily refund you. So why settle for ordinary when you can brew with better yeast? Visit berkeleyyeast.com to learn more and start brewing with science on your side. Also, as breweries expand beyond beer into other segments like mocktails and CBD beverages, Old Orchard is here to help. They can formulate custom blends featuring specialty ingredients. Whether trending flavor additions or nostalgic favorites, the next best thing is around the corner at Old Orchard. More information and free samples are waiting at oldorchard.com/brewer. That's oldorchard.com/brewer. Jesse, I told a little bit of your story there, but
Sure.
why don't you fill out the gaps in that story and give us some of that background?
I'm from the West. I've spent my whole life California, Hawaii, Idaho, Wyoming, but most of my adult life was in Wyoming, and went to the University of Wyoming, and so did my wife, and found a love of beer being only 45 minutes to Fort Collins and being able to drive down there, and fell in love with craft beer at Odell's, New Belgium, and so on and so forth. The list goes on as those breweries started to pop up. Like, I'm still just such a big fan of Zwei Brewing.
For sure.
And some of the other...
Zwei Brewing, the closest brewery to my house, 1 mile away from my house.
That's a treat.
For sure.
I've always enjoyed those guys' beer, and they do this right lager and IPA, and they do it really, really well. So kind of found those places when I was in college, and then 2008 happened, and getting close to graduating and realizing that there wasn't going to be any work for me, kind of pushed me to be like, well, I don't really, what's the point? I was climbing a lot. I was traveling all over the world just to climb. Not professional.
A little bit of the dirtbag lifestyle.
Dirtbag lifestyle. Van life before van life was cool.
Yeah.
But got dragged into a situation where I had a friend who was a bar owner in Lander, Wyoming, and I told her that I'd move there for the summer to bartend if she'd give me a job. So I just wanted to climb and just work a few days a week. And, a decade later, I'd been there and made a transition as, you can only be behind the bar for so long before sometimes that some people, I couldn't do the lifer bartending situation, but I had kind of gotten deeper into cocktailing as well. I bar managed for a while, got burnt out doing that, moved back to bartending. And then I realized I really wanted to learn how to, make beer. Yeah. And they ended up hiring a really good brewer who was the head brewer at Altitude Chop House, Nathan Vinner. He moved to Lander, and I asked him for a job. He said no for a few months, and then he finally realized he needed a keg washer. So started at the bottom, just like most people do. I went straight from the bar to brewery. So I don't know if that's...
There's a pay cut right there.
Tell my wife about it. She still to this day is like, remember when that we went from making like decent enough money to nothing. But I really wanted to reinvent my career and saw brewing as something that I could do for a long time, and was really excited about it. And all these years later, I'm still just as excited as ever, if not more. I think I have so much joy doing this, and I know we're in a real interesting time in craft beer, but man, I'm happy.
It's good to hear. So from Lander, you ended. Where'd you go?
From Lander, I ended up back in Laramie, took over Altitude Chop House. It was my first head brewing gig. It was a place that was very comfortable to me since I already knew it from college days. And the old head brewer was my friend. And the guy that was there is still in Wyoming running Blacktooth Brewing, a really excellent brewing in Sheridan, Wyoming, Jared Long. So those
We're gonna
guys
get Jared on the podcast one of these days.
You got to.
I have a long text conversation. There've been multiple attempts, but hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I hope I run into him at GABF.
One of these days.
Yeah, he's got good stories, and he's a hell of a brewer.
Yeah.
Runs a good team up there. So anyways, I took over Altitude Chop House. Immediately had success on the GABF stage because the tools in the when you start brewing and you work for someone who already has awards under their belt and they start teaching you really good habits, those habits follow you. And they followed me to Altitude, and I was able to kind of quick study some of the things I needed to do to win. Also, there's the Rocky Mountain advantage, right? Like you don't have to ship your stuff. You just drive it down to the warehouse. It's hashtag Rocky Mountain advantage. They definitely have that. And that's fine by me for GABF. A World Beer Cup is a lot more level playing field because everything has to move to whatever city, at least for one of the judging sessions. So I always find that kind of part of the game, part of the fun. But after Laramie, my wife had been accepted to a graduate program in Nashville at Vanderbilt. And so life took us to Tennessee for 2 years, and I worked for 2 different breweries there. Tailgate, which was a really interesting experience. I learned a lot about a lot of things.
What a crazy growth that brewery is
Crazy.
going through.
I mean, the amount of pubs that they've opened in the last 5 to 7 years, and I give credit to Wes, the owner, and him and I run into each other. It's laughs and smiles, and we get along great. He's business savvy in the way that he saw kind of around the curve with how he could run his business and grow his business in Tennessee. But after
it appears that they're doing some good things in a broader sense in terms of like providing employee health care and benefits, like getting out ahead of some of the things that not every brewery can afford to offer to some of their employees. And it seems from my perspective to be some positive stuff around there.
Absolutely.
Employee facing.
Absolutely. I had a good experience there, but I was the lead brewer there, and I was working for Spencer Longhurst, who runs Barrique Brewing and Blending. And I really enjoy him, and I are brothers. We talk every week. We're good friends. I just respect the hell out of him, and love Joel, love that whole brew crew there. Actually, he has my brewer I left on the way there, Brett White. He's also a really great cat, but moved it there. Worked there at Tailgate, and then I had the opportunity to go take over a struggling little lager brewery called Little Harpeth Brewing Company, and jumped on that because it had a 5-vessel lager brew house, a JV Northwest system.
Okay,
but the beers were a struggle, like on every level, on everything that you're like, wow. So I got in there and got under the hood and just started, tinkering away and working at that. And as I knew that we're coming to the time where April was going to graduate, and we both were like, we're either going to Denver or Seattle. These are the places where we kind of had dialed in. These are places we wanted to live. We wanted to be back in the West. I knew that was going to happen. I reached out to Spencer and I was like, hey, I'm going to be on my way out if you wanted this gig. And he jumped on it. And that's what ended up transitioning him to Barrique Brewing and Blending, because they actually are in the building that Little Harpeth was in, on the brew house that is now the Barrique, which you've been to. Yeah. So it's kind of a big circle, and my assistant brewer, Brett White, is just stayed on and moved on and now works for Spencer. So it's kind of fun to go back and still see all the familiar faces and good people. So I came out here to Seattle, about 6 months before COVID. So into 2019. And got a good job working for my friend Tom Fury at Chainline, which is a nice brewery here, makes good award-winning lagers, good people, and did that into COVID until COVID made everyone feel a certain way, and I wasn't even sure at that point, if I wanted. I think the world was so weird. I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I took a little break from brewing, and then as COVID started to lift up, I went and poured beer for a few months, and then fell into a cask brewing job at Machine House. The owner, Bill, was getting ready to have a second kid, and he wanted to have a proper paternity leave. Yeah. And I was just like, sign me up. I want to make cask ale. I want to learn about this madness. And so I did that for 5 or 6 months before.
I have it on good authority that there's a Machine House podcast episode coming up sometime soon.
Wonderful. Bill has a lot of good stories, and I just love and respect people that have, this is my vision. This is what I'm doing. This is how I want to do it. And he's doing it his way. It doesn't make it the easy way. There's a lot of ways he could make his business maybe make more sense in a lot of modern ways, but it wouldn't be it wouldn't be authentic to the thing that he was trying to do. Right. And I just have so much respect and love for that. So I still try to get over there and have pints, but Formula Brewing was going through a partnership
breakup.
Split. And the original owners were all splitting, and they wanted to keep the brewery running, but they needed to sort out who was going to do what. That's where I stepped in as a consultant. Hired as a consultant. They told me it'd be about 3 months. And so I got in here, and same thing, you have to jump into a new system and a lot of new things and kind of work out where things are at. It's very comfortable for me because this is a 15-barrel ICC&W, which is basically a JV Northwest. And I've worked on 3 or 4 different brew houses part of the advantage of having a Swiss cheese career where you've worked at a lot of places is that you get more comfortable with different tools and different brew houses. And it wasn't that hard to slide in here and start making the adjustments that I was excited to do just as a consultant to keep it afloat. But the longer, every 3 months, I'd sign another 3-month contract, another 3-month contract. Got past a year and I started to just really get comfortable, and I didn't really want to leave anymore. When I was originally signed on just to work 20 to 30 hours a week, and I was trying to keep the machine house job and just do that part time because I loved the cask ale game. But it became pretty obvious that this was a full-time gig and I had to move over here to do that. So I've been here now. This is my 4th summer. But the last 2 years have been dynamite.
4th summer, spoken like a true dirtbag.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
where am I this season?
I always say the brewers should measure how long they've been at a brewery by the summers they've worked at it, because a summer is a year of your physical, mental life. Like, I'm coming to the end of my busy season and all I can think about is vacation. All I can think about is the time off that I've earned, that I've worked really hard for this summer. And again, I love making beer and I love putting in the work, and to a fault sometimes. But when you come to the end of the summer, I start dreaming about what I'm going to be doing this winter and where I want to go and where I want to travel to.
And you also get to enjoy, especially here, the process of harvest and all the people that come around for that. This kind of like just social occasion that happens here in the Pacific Northwest. We were rolling around Seattle yesterday for a little bit, and you just go to any tap room we went to and would run into brewer friends from other parts of the country who just happened to be in the tap room there. And of course, here you are on this drive between Seattle and Yakima Valley, and so it's definitely a stop along the way that people
it's convenient.
Can make.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about some of these beers you make. Before we do that, Indie Hops brings Oregon's natural wonder to brewers, celebrating 16 years of delivering compelling new hop varieties along with classics that thrive in Oregon's terroir. Indie is the original source for Strata, Luminosa, Lorien, Meridian, and their newest variety, Audacia. Release your creativity with the magic of pure, uncut Oregon hops from Indie. Indie Hops, life is short. Let's make it flavorful. And looking for a powerful no-rinse sanitizer that gets the job done fast, meet SaniClean PAA Pro from 5 Star Chemicals. This EPA-registered PAA-based acid sanitizer is tough on beer stone and perfect for everything from kegs to packaging lines. Available in 2 convenient sizes, it's ideal for coarse sprayers, fermenters, and more. Trusted by pros, designed for performance, SaniClean PAA Pro helps you brew with confidence. Learn more at 5starchemicals.com. Brew better, brew with 5 Star. Also, brewers, have you ever considered brewing with North America's only ancient grain wild rice? Craft brewers in northern Minnesota have been keeping this a secret for years. Joe at Canoe Wild Rice has a stockpile of this unique roasted grain ready to ship to you. From the waters of Minnesota to your tap room, anywhere in the country, you're sure to create an in-demand product. Brewers Blend Wild Rice is the perfect size and texture so it can be added directly into your mash. Save you time in the brewing process. Plus, for over 4 generations, Canoe Wild Rice has been using their time-tested process that gives the wild rice a distinct roasted flavor. Who knows what sensation you could create with this aquatic grain? Canoe Wild Rice also has food-grade hulls available for your mash. Harvest season is underway in Minnesota now, but Joe will make time for you if you have any questions or want to get an order going. Send Canoe Wild Rice an email at joe@canoewildrice.com or give the office a call at 1-800-626-3809. Let's talk about lagers first, and just because we have to make people wait to hear about hops, that's the tease that we throw out here. Although, I mean, these days, imagine many brewers would rather actually just talk about lagers. But you mentioned getting into lager brewing in a very serious way in Tennessee, and lagers figure deeply into this program here at Formula. Helles and Zwickelbier or Keller beer, are both big things for you here, which makes sense because, I mean, this is a place where people come and eat and enjoy beers. And when I say beers, I mean multiple beers. They come to have a few, and you are delivering on that for them. So, let's talk to me about, your approach to designing Helles that works within this brew house, because,
Sure.
Brewing it on a focused German style brew house with 5 vessels, that's made for that kind of beer is a little different than brewing it on an American craft brewing kind of typical system here.
Absolutely. And I can't really talk about lager without making sure that I mention that people early in my career, Jared Long, Nathan Venner, and even to a heavier degree, Ashley Carter and Bill I have been instrumental in helping shape the way I make lager.
Sure.
I'm fortunate to meet Ashley and Bill before Bierstadt Lager House was open. And we're going to be there in 2-3 weeks for GABF. I'll be enjoying pints there, and
I'll be there too.
If you've had it, and you're a brewer and you think about lager, you dream about making beer like that. Now, I again don't have those types of tools. Maybe not the skill either.
You don't have the float tank, huh?
Don't have the float tank. I don't have the skill. Probably. Let's be honest. I probably don't have the chops, but I know how to.
I don't know.
Work my way around.
You have a couple of World Beer Cup medals for it, so
yeah, they're awards. They're nice, and I think someday I'll really reflect and enjoy that. But I don't know. You talk to most competitors, and they're not. I don't think that they're. I'm not looking backwards, right? Like, what's next?
Sure.
What's next? 0-0 kind of mentality. But I just wanted to make sure that, like, before we get into the lager talk, to be like, this is where my chops came from.
Sure.
And obviously I have a lot of other people I'm not mentioning here that deserve a lot of credit and help steer me in a lot of ways. But when I have a serious lager issue, Ashley or Bill are people that I reach out to.
Yeah.
And they've helped me actually with the process that I use here. Something I went back and forth. I was like, I've tried this, Ashley. I've tried this. And so I've kind of settled on, you want to get on into process?
Yeah.
Okay. Talk a little bit about mashing process here. My pale lagers that I make here are all single decocted.
Okay.
I do have a mash mixer that is jacketed. Everything is a high pressure steam system, which is really convenient.
High pressure steam.
Yeah, it's not. You don't see a lot of 15 barrel brew houses that have high pressure steam. I wasn't here to do the build out, but I'm not upset about that at all. It runs hard, and I had to like pull it back, throttle it back quite a bit to keep it where I want it for boils and whatnot. But all my pale lagers are single decoction, but I do what I call a front side decoction, where I only mash 33% in, do all the steps, do the decoction. Then I'll bring in the other bit of the mash to go through another sack rest and another step and then another mash out. And it takes more time, right? It's a lot of time, but I was struggling with, I don't have a way to bring the mash back and forth from my mash tun to my lauter tun, which I had in Nashville at Little Harpeth Brewing. So I had to get creative about how I wanted to do the decoction.
So you do a full... first mash step and then boil after that first mash step?
I go through 3 steps.
3 steps.
Yeah, 3 steps. I come in.
Walk me through that.
It's not. I don't think it's all that unique. Like I come in at 134, 135.
Yeah.
5 minutes. I don't want to be there very long. I think that if you stay low for too long, you can have foam problems. You can have fermentation problems as far as finishing. I want my beers to finish dry and have a healthy fermentation. So I want to get up to that 146 to 149 range and rest. I give a longer rest to my beers than some of my other friends do, because I think it helps build more malt depth. And then I get up to
the. You say longer out? How much longer?
I mean, I'm an hour on my sack rest. That's really long. I know people will simply say, well, this is modern. Modern malt converts 20 minutes, 30 minutes ish, maybe. And it does, right? You stay in it, you'll know it is. I still think that there's better malt depth to be gained, not by going fast, but by going slow. That's something that I think that throughout a lot of the beers that I make here is that I kind of have a slow down to make better beer mentality. And it's definitely helped me with lager beer. I know most people don't have the luxury of time and the luxury to take their time, but I think it helps the beers.
It makes for a long day if you're having long mash rests like that. So then at what point there, do you then start boiling that?
Well, yeah, I'll go through 3 steps, and then I'll go through the sack rest and go up to 156, 158, and do another 10, 15 minutes there, and then I will go ahead and go up to boiling. The boils are short for these pale lagers. I've messed around with times from 2 minutes to 15 minutes, and I'm pretty happy in the 8-minute range. Yeah. But I've been happy with 2 to 5 minutes on some of these. Right. I'm always tweaking. I'm always playing around with them. But I do think adding that decoction step.
I was talking to Eric Toft about just how short his, those are very short decoctions.
And some of my tricks come from Eric. Yeah. Eric's a Wyoming boy.
I did that interview with him in Blacktooth in Cheyenne. So yes, I do know that. His dad was right there too.
His dad. That's how I met him. He came to Altitude when I was the brewer there, and
we've met at Zwei a number of times for beers when he's in town. So
I've been fortunate enough to be at Schoenraum drinking beer with him as well in the last few years, and so I've kind of full circle to kind of get to experience those beers. But
shorter decoctions.
Shorter decoctions. It's just depth, more depth. Yeah. When you're talking about these pale beers, Pilsner malts, it's you really got to eke out more character, and whatever your brew house can give you, you're looking for that advantage and way to get that character, and that's what I found works really well here in our little brew house. When you say
character, what are you describing? Like what kind of character per se? And I think, I know what I would call it, because, you're looking for this kind of like a bit more body and fullness without the sweetness. So you're trying to accomplish both of those things in this one step.
Right. How do you massage out all the grain character, husk character without getting it astringent?
Right.
Right. I can taste those beers when I'm like, wow, that's really husky. That's really astringent. I think that there is a level that boiling your mash is going to give you a soft character.
Right.
So it's everything that you're just beating up.
And since you've got steam, not a direct fire, the Maillard thing works in a little, it's a little bit different.
I'm good. I don't pick up.
What kind of base Pilsner malt do you use for this?
For my Helles, I'm usually bouncing between Extra Hell, Environment Extra Hell, and Environment Pilsner. I know I've
bouncing between.
Yeah, Barca too. Barca sometimes.
Back and forth, or blending the two?
Right now I'm really into blending them. Okay. And I've blended them 60-40 both ways on different batches. I've done it 50-50, 75-25. And then, there's also, bringing in the Barca if you want to get some different character in there. Right now I'm real happy with Environment Pilsner. I think that it really works for the beers that I'm working with, especially when it comes to pale lagers.
Is that what makes it change for you? I mean, because obviously these malts change a little bit.
Right.
There's some year-to-year variability on some of this, but you can look at those COAs and figure out what that is. Does do you change your blends based on that? Or you change just based on how you're feeling at any given point?
Oh, how I'm giving at any given point. This is the beauty of working at a small brewery that turns beer. Often is that, hey, what do I want to try that's next? Right, what's new? Right. What's going to keep me interested? What else can I learn? Winning awards at competitions is fine, but what am I learning? How am I pushing myself further?
So it's just, we'll see what this tastes like. We'll try that one then.
Yeah. Well, but also I would also caution that it's not my first rodeo. I've been making these styles of beer for a long time. So it's not that these decisions are made like super lightly. It's just that it's fun for me to make those adjustments on the fly and be like, you know what, for this batch, I do want a bag of Vienna in here. Why not?
Interesting. So you're pulling this, character from Environment Malt out. Walk me through then, the rest of this process. You mash a third in.
Yeah.
You bring it up to boil.
Yeah.
8 minutes. You bring it back down, and then you add more grain and start your step mash again.
Yep. What I've figured out that works really well.
Let's decide how to make this even longer.
Yeah.
By doing a 3-step mash with an hour rest and then adding the rest and doing it all over again.
I think it goes back.
That's a little crazy, Jesse.
It goes back to being a mountain climber. If you've ever climbed mountains and you've ever suffered in the mountains, it makes it easier to suffer in the brew house. If I think that a process is going to make the beer better, but it's harder, I will always take the route that makes the beer better as opposed to a shortcut, what I perceive as a shortcut. Now, I've had some incredible lagers that are just single infusion, very simple. I shouldn't say simple. Simple's not fair. When it's a great beer, it's a great beer.
Sure.
I'm not my way.
I don't think simple is a dig on anything. Yeah. Just I think that things that are honest and direct, that can be just as good.
Yeah, I've just been tinkering away all these years and messing around with different things and kind of settled into some of the processes that I feel comfortable with. So after the decoction, I'll mash the rest of it in on top. But what I start by doing is bringing in cool water to take that boil back down, and then I'll let the grain in when I have my mash at a proper rate, so that I don't. At first, I was just bringing it in and having why
now it's pretty hot. Yeah,
it's pretty hot. So why is my fermentation stalling out a little bit?
Right.
I wasn't getting quite to where I wanted to in the dryness. Like there's a little more residual sweetness. And there's something to be said about those Hellas's too, right? There's plenty of Hellas in Munich that you'll have that's pretty full bodied and has more residual sugar, and it's no dig on that. I just like mine a little drier. I think American drinkers also like it a little bit drier, or maybe that's just me projecting. But I'll take it. I get to make these beers.
It depends on the kind of drinker, right? I think there's that IPA drinker that is used to that kind of feeling of dryness because of the bitterness component there, and but then I think every time I try to drink a macro lager, I'm always shocked at how sweet they are. They are. I don't do it a lot, but it always hits me like, I think some of these macro brewers have trained people to kind of like some of that sweet character,
and higher pHs than you would think too. If you ever taken decant some of those macro beers, I've always been first time I did it, I was really surprised.
Like what?
Like what beer?
What beer and what pH?
Okay. Rainier, for example, right? Pacific Northwest used to be once upon a time Darling. It's not made here anymore. It's still, people drink lots of it. Definitely decanted that and taken pHs that were in the pretty high fours, like what I would see with some of my finished IPAs with heavy dry hops.
Right.
And being really shocked because it has a sweetness perception that you think might be coming from enzymes, I would expect, but also just these higher pHs, which I usually don't have pH in that range for my lager beers.
Interesting. Well, let's I want to keep following this process forward.
Sure.
So you then go through your long ass hour long mash rest again with the full mash in there, and then follow me through the rest of the process.
Sure. I'll go through another 158 rest there, and then on some batches I do a mash out temp, and sometimes I don't. I've done it both ways to see if I would have any differences, or if my runoff would be any different, my boil off or anything like that, and I haven't really perceived a difference. So lately I haven't been mashing off, just in case there is anything that might still want to convert on its way over. I'll take it. So then I'm going to bring it over to the lauter ton, nice and slow. Everything I do, I don't know what I'm talking about, taking my time. I think something that I was taught early on is that the last thing you want to do to your beer is bruise it.
Right.
I think a lot of beers that you taste, little things have little effects. And if you do a lot of those little things over the course of making the beer, you're bruising it. And so I try to do everything softly, and bring everything over, go through a rest, Vorl off, then start sending it over to the kettle.
Slow pumping, I'm sure.
My lauter sparged all the way kettle full is about 2 hours. 2 hours.
Oh man.
But my kettle full is 20-ish barrels.
Okay.
So I'm, filling that I want the efficiency and get the most out of this little 15 barrel brew kit. Makes my life a little bit easier. If I'm doing all the hard work of spending all the hours making it, the thing I could do to help myself on the other end is get some more kegs out of it. And
makes sense.
Yeah. I wasn't doing that at first when I was here, and realizing that, I'm making myself work too hard for too little. So I'll go through the boil. Nothing shocking or weird about the boil. I'm doing a 60-minute boil. In fact, I know I have a lot of friends that do 90 minutes for their lagers. They're like, oh man, I'm so worried about DMS. But if you were here on a brew day, you would be like, oh yeah, you don't need that. I'm 10% evaporation in 60 minutes. It's more like 14% at 90, it's too much. Like I'm losing and giving away quite a bit of
even
wort
here
that
in
way.
this humid environment, Washington.
High pressure boiler,
There you go.
steam boiler.
Yeah.
It just rips. I have to
rigorous boil.
I have to dial it back.
Yeah.
And I also learned that the hard way. You know, a vigorous boil that looks so healthy doesn't necessarily mean it's good for the beer.
Right.
And that was definitely another lesson I had to learn here to keep it, dial it back, and just let it do its thing properly. So.
A little bit of hops at the top, or
oh yeah, I mean I'm definitely of the school of like sprinkling in first wort is kind of like fairy dust. I couldn't tell you the reason why or what. It might be a superstition, might be one of many superstitions I have, but when it comes to the Helles, I think I'm about, I want to say, it depends on the batch, I've been anywhere from a half a pound per barrel to a quarter of a pound per barrel. The Helles that you have in front of you that you're sipping on is probably a little over a quarter pound per barrel, and I actually wish there was more hop character in that beer. It's an easy beer to drink.
What kind of hops?
Middle fruit tradition.
Okay.
I'm kind of big fans of those hops, and definitely for the Helles, that's what I've been really comfortable with. I don't really, I mean, if I rub some Tettnang that's really good, and that's something that's hard for us to get access to. But again, being this close to Yakima, that means that there are also purveyors there that are
good brokers.
Yes, some really good brokers. Yeah. And I generally work with Hollingberry and Sons because they work with IGN and Baywa, and I really like the way those German hops show up. And obviously, we're having a number of rough harvests in Germany, but I think last year was that's the best that I've rubbed in years, as far as hop pellets go. So I'm pretty excited about having enough to get through another season with 24s.
Nice. Well, we'll talk about fermentation here in a sec, but first, for over 50 years, Prairie Malt has been producing high extract malts forged from the fertile soils of Saskatchewan. As proud members of Bort Malt, one of the largest malt companies in the world with 27 malt plants in 16 countries, their North American malts are complemented by a wide variety of base and specialty imported malts from around the globe. This year, Prairie Malt is partnering with Roadhouse Brewing Company and Melvin Brewing Company to pour an unforgettable lineup of beers at their shared booth at this year's Great American Beer Festival in Denver, Colorado from October 9th to 11th. So stop by the booth, sample some award-winning beers produced with excellent malts, and learn more about why malt from bigger is better at prairiemalt.com. Also, Senos, the new leader in AI-driven fermentation, sensing, analytics, and control for the brewing industry, is now taking orders for the most advanced intelligent sensing technology, the Senos M3, the hardware connection into their Senos system. The Senos system platform delivers real-time fermentation control and predictive insights, giving brewers the tools to monitor key variables, detect issues before they escalate, achieve consistent outcomes, and eliminate waste with every batch. The Senos M3 is a modular in-tank sensor that delivers continuous real-time monitoring. The M3 captures 8 critical fermentation parameters throughout production. Turn your tank into a smart tank. Order your Senos M3 at Senos.com. That's Senos, SENNOS.com. And Brees Malting has been involved in the craft brewing community ever since it was established in the 1980s. Today, Brees offers the largest product line of specialty malt and is continuing to innovate. New malts include Heritage Gold and English-style ale malt with complex bread character, and Lighthouse Munich, which has the full body of a Munich malt but minimal impact on color. All Brees malts are produced in the United States, so you can count on a reliable supply chain. Barley is sourced from 300 growers in the Bighorn Basin of Wyoming and Montana. Malt is the backbone of beer. Check out why so many craft brewers trust Brees for their specialty malt at brewingwithbrees.com. Let's talk about fermentation.
Sure.
Yeah. So talk to me about this next step for you. Are you team 3470? What do you? How are you fermenting these?
Well, I'm team 3470. But this is something I think I like to say when people are talking to me about lager yeast and what selection and what strain you want to use. I always say that 3470 isn't 3470 isn't 3470. What I mean by that is when you get a pitch from XYZ purveyor,
right,
and then you get one from a different purveyor, and you get a dry pitch, and then you get a different liquid pitch. I've used six different 3470s from different companies because I want to know, and because I get to have that flexibility. I don't think they're all the same.
So which 3470 do you find yourself enjoying brewing with?
BSI.
BSI. Okay.
Yeah, I'm team BSI. When it comes to continental yeasts, I've really been very happy throughout my career using a lot of their stuff, whether it's Cole strains, right? They have
Such a
multiple Cole
Rocky Mountain
strains.
homer
I
over
know.
there.
I do miss the Rockies, and I love going back. I love spending time there, but I'm just a big fan of what BSI does and what their yeast does for me. Now, I use different yeasts from different purveyors from all over the place, depending on what I'm trying to do.
But for Helles, it's BSI 3470.
Yes. And cold and slow. So when we're talking about fermentation, I'm definitely a team cold and slow. I mean, everything else I'm doing is hard. So why not make it harder on myself?
Well, when you say cold and slow, what does that mean?
48 and a half.
Okay.
Maybe on Helles G1, it might be 48 and a half to 49.
Okay.
But I don't do a D-rest.
So that's a little colder than this Kemper, Davy, Freem kind of school of lager brewing up here in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, I also don't run my fermentations under pressure. Okay. I know that's a kind of a popular thing for a lot of brewers. And again, I've had those beers.
So why don't you?
I think it traps in undue things, unneeded things I don't want in. I do.
It's going to blow off a little more sulfur and
a little more sulfur. Now I want to trap some of the good sulfur at the end of fermentation, and I will spoon at the end of fermentation, but I do not want that trapped early.
Yeah.
So I'm like a point away, but when I start to like to trap that in, and a lot of times if I have time and I have the tanks open, I'll go ahead and transfer on between day 8 and day 10 sometimes. So still plenty of fermentation to go. I'll transfer to another fermenter and then let it go ahead and go through.
Why do you do that?
To get it off of any junk that might be in the tank. It's a step that cleans it up just a little bit.
You can't get enough just by dropping or shaving the cone of the tank.
It's a little bit better. If it's 1% to 2% better, it's better. Better is better.
There's always challenges, right? You do a transfer now. There's at least you still got yeast in there. So if there's any oxygen,
that's the thing about lager yeast, right? A lot of it's in suspension. A lot of healthy yeast is in suspension. It cleans up a lot on its own right there. It's building pressure. It's building the kind of sulfur that I want. And then I can transfer it over to the bright for it to rest once that's done. Once I feel really comfortable.
Why not have to clean a whole extra tank between those in the process? Because
I don't do that every time. When I have the time.
The competition badges.
Maybe. For sure, I'm going to give those just a little bit more love.
Yeah.
But it's also, again, it just goes back to what is this? Why not? I have the time. I have the tanks. I have the space. Why wouldn't I try it? I mean, I've decocted an American Imperial Stout because I could, and then hopped it only with Saaz because I had lots of it, and I wanted a Girl Scout cookie kind of Imperial Stout, and it tasted great. If you have the ability to be creative and you have the freedom, I don't work in a factory. I work in a pub, and it's my job to find interesting flavors to give to the customers for them to enjoy.
If you are willing to put that work in, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. And
we'll see how long I can.
And some of the results speak to yourself, but for themselves. But yes, that's hey, no, cool. Not something that everyone's going to replicate out there. But if you are that insane and just want to do it that way, I can't tell you you're wrong. I can just say that you're insane and doing extra work that it goes above and beyond. Anyway, cool. So then at one point one point to go, you spin the tank so that you can grab some of that CO2 and sulfur.
That's what I want right there at the end. Yeah. And those are things that I've read about, was taught.
Sure.
That it really worked out well for me. It's nice not to have to carb a beer very much. And it's, natural carbonation makes foam so much fun.
Sure.
We talk about how important foam structure is in beers, whether they're hoppy or not. And I think that natural carbonation just holds the best kind of foam.
Okay, so we've talked about this medal-winning Helles. Now let's flip gears and talk about hoppy beers because again, it's hop harvest time right now.
Yeah.
We're gonna be in Yakima later this afternoon. We're on our way out there to do some other stuff that people will have heard by the time this episode actually airs. The magic of time and editing and all of those things. But this time of year is a fun one for you, and your IPAs also do really well. We'll talk about because it's fresh hop season right now.
Sure.
Let's talk about your approach to fresh hops. Again, you're an hour and a half away from one of the biggest hop growing area in North America.
Between Oregon and Washington, we have the best hoppy IPA hops in the world.
Yeah.
There's no question there that we're growing here in the Pacific Northwest those important hops that you need for IPA making.
Yeah, New Zealand would like to have a word with you about that, but
I use a lot of New Zealand hops in my beers. I love Southern Hemisphere beers, and let's not forget Australia is about to make a comeback. Like if you haven't already heard about what they're doing down there, I think that it might be time to start talking about Galaxy as not being trash anymore.
Interesting.
I've gotten some 25 crop this year that's made me think I need to go back to Galaxy. I haven't rubbed Galaxy this good for 10 years.
Interesting.
So I'm pretty excited to go back to exploring that type of hop. But
one of these days we're going to get down to Australia for hop harvest and go get the lay of the land, and also go visit some of our Australian listeners down there.
But I already,
if that materializes for 2026.
Already off on a tangent talking about Australian hops when you said, let's talk about fresh hops.
Yeah.
Let's talk about fresh hops.
So there's a couple of schools of thought around fresh hops. One, obviously I've done podcast episodes and video class with Single Hill and explored their method, which is such a fun one where it's a mix of like, hot side fresh hop steep, and also taking kilned hops from right off of the cooling floor, and then pelletizing those so that you can use that current crop year in your dry hop along with it. There is the Ben Edmonds break side method, where Ben is team cold side. He is using nitrogen and shattering some of these hops and then using those in a cold side steep, and that's their approach for it. When I talked to Sean at Ruse, when we talked about fresh hops, a month or two ago, he has his approach. They are team hot side, and and certainly have a playful back and forth with Breakside. They're very good friends with, but love to have that kind of playful interaction. From your perspective, where do you land in the in this hot side, cold side, fresh hop wars of 2025?
Oh man, I love this conversation because I think it's fun for all of us to be stirring it up. We should all be challenging and pushing each other as brewers. I've had Breakside's fresh hops. I think they're fantastic. I've had Steve Luke at Cloudburst, his team hot side, and I got to tell you, it's some of my favorite fresh hop beer. Every year I run down to that brewery and gobble up some of those beers because they're fantastic and they're interesting. They're unique in their own way. I don't think there's any.
They are packaging some on Tuesday, and we have a arranged pickup for Cloudburst fresh hop beers on Tuesday before we fly out. There's some
just to bring some home.
Just to bring some home. There's some timing involved there.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think that there are values on both sides of the coin. I'm here brewing by myself. I do not have an assistant brewer, except Danny, the owner. He does jump back there. He'll help me any way I ask him to help, which is great to have. But I don't have a dedicated help. And
so someone here is not spinning up the brew and mashing you in while you're making the run out to Yakima to get some hops.
Well, I have been able to get people to either bring hops to me or make deals to get. We have a security parking guy who will go and do it for me. So I do have help in that sense, where I can mash in and start working.
A security parking guy.
He's great
for you.
He's awesome. A retired dude that just loves going out to the farms and picking up the hops. I'd say that
pop up the beautiful mountain pass here. It's fantastic.
If you have a crew, it is a lot of fun to do that liquid nitrogen cracking of the hops and putting them into the cold side. And it's quicker. There's a lot of efficiency to that method, and there's a lot of flavor characteristics that are very unique as opposed to hot side. I think we're just talking about different sides of the same category, right? When we talk about fresh hop, I think that we need to maybe have some delineation of how we communicate that to our public. But more importantly, I want us to make fun of each other, give each other a hard time. I want us to learn from each other, but also communicate that out to the public. So when I see things online, I love it because that means our beer fans and our beer drinkers. I mean, why do people watch fake wrestling? Why do they do that?
Fresh hop beef.
Right.
Fresh hop beef is going to get people engaged.
But it's all fake. It's not real. These people love each other that I see ribbing each other online back and forth. We all love and respect each other, but it's okay to say, no, I like beer this way. The one thing I will say about, I do hot side here, but I've also started to experiment. Now they're doing a lot of fresh frozen products, right? Whether it's YCH or Crosby, they're putting out a lot of these really interesting products. And I think that there's something to that. So you can hot side and cold side. And I think maybe you're capturing some of the best of both worlds. What Zach does at Single Hill is so unique. I just got to go up and participate in the fresh hop rodeo.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Pelletizing fresh killed hops right there, right in front of you. Incredible experience. Very unique. Not something that I can't just buy a pelletizer and then get fresh killed hops here. But once a year, it's hard to justify the cost. But for him, he's doing so many. And, you know, Varietal just down the valley. Chris has his own method. And I also went and made beer with him this year and just had my mind melted about all these different techniques that we're using to get the most out of these green, fresh hops and fresh kilned hops. And so I can't say there's a right or a wrong. There's still a lot of exploration happening right now. And I'm a fan of all of it, but it's easy to make fun of some of it. I'll say some of the best fresh hop lagers I've ever had were cold side.
Okay.
But fresh hop IPA, I'm generally team hot side.
Cold side for fresh hop lager, hot side for fresh hop IPA.
And you think about you've drank a lot of cold side fresh hop beers. They tend to have like this beautiful melon, green melon character.
Yep.
And that green melon character comes through. Green melon character comes through really well with lager yeast and kind of presents like some of the new school German hop varietals.
Right.
And so I don't know. There's something about it that I really like.
Love that melony character. Any trends that you're noticing this year in hops and the way that harvest has been going so far?
Well, Dolcita is like the new hot buzzword, right? They named
former 1019.
They named 1019. It's kind of this wonderful hop that people frown as soon as I say this, but it's all the good things of Sabro to me, without the bad.
I don't know bad things about Sabro. I don't know what you're talking about.
Woody, cedar,
in some cases,
suntan lotion.
Coconut, man.
I love coconut. I can't get enough coconut. Give me an Almond Joy. I'll destroy it right now.
That vanilla character. I mean, it's
I'm okay with that. I'm just not good with the woody cedar fake suntan lotion. So I think of Dolcita, at least the stuff that I've either used or the stuff the fresh hops that I've messed with. And one of my collabs had Dolcita in it. Pina colada.
Right.
Awesome. Just awesome pina colada.
Yeah. But
it doesn't have any of the suntan lotion stuff and the cedar and the wood, and those are negative attributes for me as a brewer. And maybe I don't think consumers want that either as much. But Sabro and fresh hop beer has all the good stuff.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. It's a hop to use for fresh hops.
I had one a couple years ago from Jason up at Stemma in Bellingham, and he was pouring it at GABF, and I've known Jason since before he launched the brewery.
Yep.
And it was a mind expanding fresh hop Sabro beer, and something. And I kept thinking there is not a brewer here who's going to go and want to drink this beer and experience it, but everybody should, because it was so different than the Sabro that you get kilned and pelletized.
Very different. So that's another part about fresh hops that's so special. Being an outsider, moving here, and now being a brewer, every year I get excited. It is Christmas, GABF is the Super Bowl, but fresh hop season is Christmas. We're so excited, and I'm also excited when it's done. Because by the time you're done with fresh hop brewing and all the work that goes into it, you're ready to take the tree down.
Yeah, the family we love it, but it's exhausting.
Love it, but it's exhausting. Exactly.
Sure. Well, okay, so a little bit about fresh hops. Let's talk about IPA brewing for you, especially in this kind of West Coast and New Zealandy West Coast kind of context. there's a lot of expectation, obviously, because of this proximity to hop country, and brewers up here, obviously, brewers like Steve at Cloudburst, are making just world class, incredible, beers in this realm, and and so you walk into this environment, and people know hops, like they're not that far from it. They get lots of them. They have very high quality hops and breweries out here in Seattle and the greater Seattle metro. As you start thinking about brewing West Coast and American IPA, where does your design brain start? And again, I know you brew lots of these and they're all over the place all the time because you're not brewing the same thing twice. But as you start designing a hoppy beer, how do you start thinking about it?
Well, I think the baseline is what are you trying to get out of a West Coast? And for me, my grandfather lives in Alpine, California.
Oh yeah, what a terrible place for San Diego style IPA. I go McElhenney's out there.
That's right. I go down every year and I sneak into McElhenney and I sneak over to North Park and I go to some of the other great breweries in the North Park neighborhood. And I come back with okay.
I was just down there last week.
And they do it a little differently than a lot of other places. But I'm definitely influenced by those beers. They have a different water profile. They have a different bitterness profile. And I want to take a little bit of that and bring that up here. But for me, the dryness is the most important thing for me is I want my beers to finish between 1.5 and 2 Plato.
Okay.
I like them best when they're there. When they are below 1.5, that's not as.
1.5 is pretty dry.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Dry. But when it's above 2, it feels a little too round for me.
Right.
And I also think that when you're dry hopping at higher pounds per barrel, and I'm pretty aggressive, there is some mouthfeel that comes with that, with all those hop oils, along with the alcohol.
Are there certain hops that provide more of that kind of character than others?
I can't. I would say that you'd look back to the oil content of that hop itself. You're also going to get some haze out of that if you're pushing a ton of hop oil into your beer. My beers aren't going to present as bright maybe as others, but I also don't filter beer.
You don't filter any beer?
I don't filter any beer. Well, I mean, if you count Biofine as filtering agent, I guess that's you can count that, but I don't filter anything. And
then even when you biofine, you're pretty
I'm real light-handed.
Yeah.
50 mil per barrel. And I know that most folks are, somewhere around that 100 mil per barrel.
Right.
That's pretty normal kind of industry standard between a lot of my friends. I like to be about half of that. I just think, look at your glass. You're drinking this little IPA here. It's not good for radio, but I can tell you that foam's not going anywhere.
No, the foam is incredible. So you think more biofine is like reducing the foam potential? And
I have no way to prove it. It might just be in my head, but I think when you add too much, you take away something from that beer, whether it be stripping out some of the hop oil in solution or some of the foam. But I cannot prove that.
But to see an IPA with great lacing like that's sitting here on this glass that I'm looking at right now that no one can see because they're listening to this and not watching it.
Just come to Formula and have an IPA.
Just take my word for it. Like some pretty excellent. Are you using anything else that's foam positive, Tetra or something?
I'm not. Although I think I need to start dabbling with it just to see. I've seen some of these it looks like ice cream on top of the beer. Some of these folks that are messing with Tetra. I think it's a great product. I think it's something that it's another tool in the tool bag to use. But I have not used it here.
So let's go back to talking about some designing some of these framework. Obviously, to build that kind of foam and that mouthfeel. Malt is important, but also needs to attenuate extremely and get super dry for you. So talk to me about that design process.
I'm going to be blending Pilsner malt 2-row, and then usually blending. Sometimes I blend, sometimes I don't.
Sure.
I'm always using different Pilsner malts. I love Gambrinus. I love Idaho Pils.
Right.
I think
that Gambrinus does get super dry. I
think you're drinking a Weirmann Pilsner American IPA. So yeah, that's sometimes I'll do that. Depends on what I've ordered. Depends on what I'm excited about. Depends on what's been working really well during the season.
Right.
With the like you said, the COAs that I get, if I'm real into I can reach out to my purveyors and be like, am I going to get the same lot, the same COAs? Then I might be given to keep buying a few more pallets of that before I get. It's not that I get bored or distracted too much. It's just that I want to try the next thing. I'm getting some Romanian Pilsner malt in the next 2 weeks.
Romanian Pilsner.
Romanian. I have no idea what it's going to do, but I'm going to make a Keller. I'll probably make a Keller beer with it just to see what it does. But I haven't quite designed that beer out yet. But it's all about what's interesting. I know I like certain malts. I know certain malts perform, but also what's going to be fun. But that's always going to be some blend of Pilsner or two-row. Nothing that you haven't heard a million times. But I do sneak in rice or wheat, depending on, again, how I'm feeling. I really like jasmine rice. Jasmine rice and
in West Coast IPA.
Yeah, especially New Zealand.
Okay.
NZ specifically, because I think those floral notes that you get from rice play really, really well with some of those thiol forward hops. And
as you say it makes so much sense. As I'm thinking about it, like, oh yeah, I could totally see how that would work.
Yeah. It's not like some high note. It's just back there.
Is that
in
you're loyal to the Soil New Zealand IPA?
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Talk to me about that. I mean, because I drank a full pint of it last night, and I sent you a picture. And like, drinking a full pint, but like, that can be a lot of a thiol-focused, thiol-heavy beer, and I felt there was an interesting restraint in it, where that character was there. Although then Joe took a sniff. He's like, it's kind of diesely. My diesel threshold is very, very high.
Right.
I am fully attuned and calibrated to that kind of character. But I thought that this was just nicely rounded, particularly in the aroma and that you had pulled that off there. So talk to me how you shape those hops and some of that character.
Well, when I make New Zealand style beers,
you did win a World Beer Cup silver for Loyal to the Soil in 2025.
And I usually don't make repeat batches. But this is a very, very close to exactly the same thing that I did for World Beer Cup, except this is hop crop year 25.
Right.
And I went out and looked for different hops, not same varietals, but different companies, different pick windows. Right. And this is something I think a lot of brewers need to be thinking about when they're trying to get their hands on the best Citra, or Citra that works for them, or Citra that they want, or Mosaic that they want, or Nelson that they want. When did that Nelson get picked? Where did that get picked? Was it in this valley or that valley? This farm or that farm? The deeper you go, the more you're going to learn about the nuances. And the one that you had last night was both early pick Rawaka, early pick Nelson. Earlier pick New Zealand hops don't present as heavy on the diesel.
Right.
When I designed those,
they're not going to have as big an oil content, and they're not going to on paper look as big and punchy. Right. But
there's a lot of fresh mango slice character that I really like without having the rotten guava, high thiol character that some people can kind of be like, oh, that's too much diesel. But I think it's really important.
And I guess it also can depend on the style of beer you're in. Like if your goal is hazy IPA and you've got a lot of sweetness and you've got a lot of other like character that's softening some of that, then that kind of Nelson, may be just the kind of, like punch to cut through some of the sweetness that you need versus something like this, which is a dry New Zealand like pale or a unfiltered but still see-through clear New Zealand IPA, where you want to round some of that character off and capture some of it without that kind of sweetness.
Yeah, and I think it's important when we're Americans, we love to categorize everything. Like I have an Australian West Coast Pilsner that I'm about to release in the next week because I used Australian hops. There's nothing really Australian about it except for the hops. And if we're going to categorize and make New Zealand IPA, New Zealand hop focused, mine are 80% New Zealand hops. I'm not like...
You're just not using extra Mosaic?
I'm not... Well, I'm not using Crush. No, I'm not using Strata. No. Right. And I know that those beers do well in competition. And I want to be true to the style, to what I hope other brewers can do with those hops. They're wonderful hops. There's other categories for that.
That's fair. It's fair. Anything else to the way that you kind of structure hop blends in New Zealand IPA?
I think I'm pretty big team Citra Nelson as far as if you're going to take some American hops and blend them in with Nelson and Rawaka is just so loud. I usually use that pretty restrained on maybe 15 to 20% of the total dry hop load. It's mainly a Nelson driven. Most of the beers I'm designing are Nelson driven because that hop is it's the champion of New Zealand, right? And I didn't have any Nectaron. I think that is a loud hop. It is. I call it the Columbus of New Zealand.
Interesting.
I use it very similarly in my beers with restraint. I want it there, but I don't want it in charge. But Nectaron's really cool. One of the coolest new hops I've had out of New Zealand. A lot
of good talk about Nectaron these days.
Yeah.
All right. So let's zoom out as we finish up here.
Sure.
Let's talk about excellence and competition.
Okay.
You've got some thoughts about this. As we were talking about recording this episode, we're gonna. In fact, when we wrap this up, we're gonna crack open some of your competition beers that you've got in bottles here, a bit of a saved here at the brewery, and taste some of these just because we can, because 'tis the season, and why not? So but you've got a process around this, maybe some superstitions that also go with it.
Yeah,
and so talk to me about what makes a great competition beer. And, what steps you take to make sure that your beers are going to present well in this kind of competition space around competition season?
Well, if you're brewing for competition or you're trying to fit your beer into a category, then it's a lot of reading comprehension, right? You're going through the BA guidelines, which change a few words at a time every year. I'd like to see more change, but I'm also, if I'm going to be in the game, then pay attention to the words on the page. It doesn't mean that that's what that style is or should be. It means if you want to be in the wheelhouse of this category to win. So it's something that I've done well through my career is just see where it fits and put it where it needs to go.
Right.
And that's treated me really well. When it comes, I've listened to your podcast often, and this is something I'm just going to sound like the last person that said that it's a packaging competition, right? You can make, I think there's a lot of great beer made that just gets dinged just a little bit in packaging.
Right.
And I've won GABF medals with the Blickman beer gun. I've won them with the counter pressure filler. I've won smaller awards with just canning lines. I think there's a million ways to do it right.
Right.
But a lot of it just comes down to focus, execution, and making sure that you're doing it the way that you think is the right way. For me, that's counter pressure, hand bottling in a corner, stressed out, loud music. I like to pick albums. I think it's really important to kind of like, what mood do I want to be in?
Are you purged chamber that you're then filling within, or like a purged cooler or something?
Not a purged cooler. I'm doing it out here in the cellar.
Okay.
So I'm doing it out here. I just get everything super cold. So it packages easily. Long purge times. So again, like a lot of my brewing process, everything's slow and methodical.
Sure.
And that tends to, I have really good, I don't have a lot of oxidation notes that come back. I get other notes, other crazy notes every year.
Sure.
But I do think that most brewers need to pay attention to how they're packaging their beer if they want to take good beer and get it onto the stage.
It was really interesting when we were judging the Best of the West competition in Oregon back in July. And going through those, thinking about the rhythm of that, thinking about how long beers are sitting on the table. But, often even my own judgment would change from the initial kind of review and kind of setting up some sort of like rough ranking to like, and you can figure out, you can knock stuff out pretty quickly on that. And then, but then you can probably identify your top beers somewhat quickly. And then like, the 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6, like those all become interesting, like challenging things to figure out after that. But even going back through that, like thinking of those beers that held on to things, they held on to some of the bitterness, they held on to foam, like 15 minutes after they've been poured, like those beers that held on to those things, or the beers that leave that lacing on the, like those are the things that start to stand back out to you. And like something that might have been initially awesome that just kind of now has like lost all of its carb as it's warmed up, and like it just doesn't have the same kind of oomph that it did. So I think there's something to this thinking about that kind of competitive set. And the nice thing is that some of those positives continue for people that are drinking even in your tap room, as the beer sits there for 15 or 20 minutes, because no one's just pounding these beers. Like, if it still tastes great and still holds on to that kind of character 20 minutes later as it's sitting there in their glass, that's a positive thing. And so I think it's good that the competition kind of space aligns with those positives about drinking, but thinking about the way that beer can hold on to some of that flavor and some of that carbonation and some of that foam, like, those are important things in that kind of competitive space.
Absolutely. I also think it's really important to judge. I think that if you're a brewer who's competitive and you want to see how your beers are peer reviewed, whether you're sending them to Craft Beer and Brewing, GABF, or it's a different Best of the West or one of these competitions, and you want that feedback, then you should start some level of judging in any way you can. Usually that's going to be it used to be homebrew comps, right? And a lot of people like to snicker at that, but I'm like, it's a great way to learn. It's a great way to learn about things you like, things you don't like. There's a lot to be learned there. And then there's other smaller professional competitions that would love to have more judges. I always tell people when, they ask about the awards and things like that, I've been lucky now that I am in those judging circles where I get to go to GABF. I get invited to World Beer Cup and get to judge with these crazy luminaries, and I learn from them. I'm sitting around the table learning from judges from Brazil. I'm learning from judges from Austria. I'm learning from judges from Japan, and it has been really good for my brewing. And it's not just the competition brewing. It's things that'll kind of like bleed into I remember that. And that was really interesting.
I've enjoyed the same judging in Mexico, judging in Poland, and being able to absorb all of this, because these different perspectives and these different kinds of approaches to those beers.
Regionality palates. Our palates are different from region to region all over the world.
Jesse, even judging with our magazine judges in Denver and Fort Collins, has been over the last 12 years, has been eye-opening for me to see how I can pinpoint what I respond to and see how that is so different than some of the other judges that we have around us. And it's also humbling. You realize that my palate is not somehow absolute or the most important.
Yep.
And you build a structure that that takes all of those opinions into consideration, and you have multiple points here. And that's the thing, like, those beers that hit for everyone become the things that lift up, and trying to understand how those things hit for the most people. That's the key there, figuring out what those are, because you can make something that's intense and pungent and that definitely stands out, but if it's polarizing, then it's going to be polarizing. So anyway, I do think that it's interesting to see how those things lift up. We could talk about that forever, but we've been talking for a while now, and this is a great place to bring it to a close so that we can open up a few beers.
Let's
and
crack
taste
a few GABF beers.
So your GABF entries. With G&D Chillers 24/7 service and support, your brewery will never stop. Berkeley Yeast bioengineers ordinary strains to make them extraordinary. Hit the refresh button on fruit flavors with craft juice concentrate blends from Old Orchard. Release your creativity with the magic of pure, uncut Oregon hops from Indy. Santa Clean PAA Pro from 5 Star Chemicals is tough on beer stone and perfect for everything from kegs to packaging lines. Reach out to Canoe Wild Rice and try brewing with their unique roasted grain. Try Prairie's lineup at the Roadhouse in Melvin booth at GABF this October. Turn your tank into a smart tank with the Senos M3 modular in-tank sensor, and try new Heritage Golden Lighthouse Munich malts from Brees. If you've enjoyed this episode, go to beerandbrewing.com, click on that subscribe button, and of course you can read the reviews that our blind panel puts into every issue of the magazine. In fact, our review coordinator Paul is working hard on our Best in Beer issue this weekend, kind of getting that all set up, because later this week, Joe and I, and then Kate Bernat and Stan Hieronymus will all be hanging out in the office, tasting through a couple of days of those Best in Beer entries, considering the top scores through the year, while also tasting those wild card entries. And it's going to be fun stuff for us. Of course, by the time people hear this, it will already be long gone. But, we're talking about judging. So there we are. We get to do it all of the time. Jesse, if people want to learn more about Formula, come here, taste the beers that you brew in Issaquah, and learn more about you on the internet. Where do they find you?
Yeah. You can find us on Instagram, Formula Beers. That's our handle. You can find us at formulabrewing.com. We're right off the freeway on your way to Yakima. Come on in, say hi. If you see me running around, say hi. I love having industry people in house, and as the years go on, we really want this to be a place that people are like, you know what, I need to stop. That traffic in Seattle was terrible. I need to relax for a minute.
The traffic in Seattle is terrible.
Yeah,
terrible. But no, just like Freem is everyone's stop on the way from Portland if they're heading up through Hood River to Yakima,
as it should be.
I can't argue with that logic.
No.
I make that same stop. This is very, very convenient for those driving over the pass from Seattle into Yakima. So anyway, great talking with you about brewing, and let's drink some beer. Cheers.
Thanks for having me on the show.
This podcast has been brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine, for those who love to make and drink great beer. To learn more or to subscribe, visit beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew.